This is Fragmented Reality, a digital bulletin podcast designed to bust the buzzwords that dominate enterprise technology. My name is Ben Mouncer, and in this episode I take my clutch of eggs, each containing an industry buzzword, to Luis Huerta, a director in intelligent automation and robotics for Cognizant. Okay, Luis, I'm sure when you arrived here today you didn't expect to have a bowl of eggs placed in front of you.
Certainly not, no.
But these eggs are special eggs. They don't have yolks or whites. They have enterprise technology buzzwords inside them, and we're going to go through them. So, Luis, if you'd like to crack open your first egg, and we'll see what emerges.
All right.
The excitement is building here.
It says blockchain.
Blockchain, okay. Well, this is one of my personal favourites, actually. And I think people associate blockchain a lot with the financial services industry, and probably the message about how high potential blockchain is probably isn't quite out there yet, is it? I mean, we know that blockchain is potentially going to disrupt every single industry, not just financial services with cryptocurrencies and that kind of thing. So, first of all, in terms of your industry, Luis, do you see blockchain impacting your industry?
We do. We're doing pilots, particularly, as you said, with banking and financial services clients. To be perfectly honest with you, most of those are just because clients want to experiment with it. And sometimes, in some extreme cases, they just want to tick a box to say, are you doing blockchain? Yes, of course, we're doing blockchain. So we see some examples like that. I think because of what you mentioned, because of its background and the first application in Bitcoin and those old Ethereum and all those cryptocurrencies, I think banking is using them, even Facebook, to create their own currency. But having a look at it, I think the application is going to be much wider than that, as you mentioned. It's going to be for smart contracts, etc., tenancy agreements, you name it. Anything that has to do eBay, anything that has to do with securely exchanging a contract, I think is going to have much of an application. But so far, we're only seeing that in banking and financial services.
It's interesting what you say. Is it almost fashionable to want to explore blockchain? Is that do you sense that a lot?
We have that, and I'll give you an example. There was a client, and this is a senior client, a CTO, who said to me, I got in the lift and bumped into my chief exec. The first thing he said, 30 seconds in the lift, the first thing he says is, I read this thing about blockchain. What are we doing in blockchain? Are we doing something in blockchain? And the guy goes into a panic, and next thing you know, he's running a pilot with 2-3 people just to tick that box. And I said, what are you trying to solve? But not really, just to say that we are doing something on blockchain. So I think there's a lot of that in the industry right now.
Do you think there's quite a big gulf between people's ambitions with the blockchain and actually people's understanding of blockchain?
Yes.
It's a very complex thing, isn't it?
It is a very complex thing, and I've seen very few people who have that mathematical understanding of what it really is. Lots of people talking about it, but yeah, I think it's a big gap in understanding. So I think it's going to take a little while to become mainstream technology, for sure.
As someone who's worked in the industry, though, do you feel that the kind of pilots that you spoke about there, that example you gave us, and the investment that sort of big companies are making in this area, do you think that is ultimately going to prove valuable? But do you think blockchain will have the impact that people sort of are estimating that it will?
It's hard to say, but I think it will. I think the investment in the pilot, and I was very cynical about saying people just want to tick a box, but the reality is that the learning they're having by doing these pilots is going to put them ahead of the curve when it comes to a real application. So no, I don't think it's throwaway completely.
So it's going to move from buzzword to thing
to something. Yes,
yeah, something. Excellent.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, excellent. Should we move on? Let's move on to the next egg.
Let's grab a yellow one this time.
A yellow one, okay. Yeah.
And the next one is robotics.
Okay, robotics.
Very close to my heart.
Very close to your heart. I think obviously you'll be able to shed a lot more light on this, but I think the term robotics obviously has been around for quite a long time now. How would you define what robotics means in today's industrial world?
Yeah, so you have the big distinction is the hardware robotics. Those are the bots that you see, the ones that are from Boston Dynamics jumping and doing twists and whatever. To the new robotics, which is software robots, just replicating what a human person would do with an application, just doing it automatically. Those are, I guess, what are taking more prominence in this industry right now.
So would you say the definition is more leaning towards the software robots? Because the hardware robots are great in industrial settings, but the software robotics is something that could potentially infiltrate all industries.
Yeah. Without being politically incorrect, I think the hardware robots have been helping and replacing a lot of the blue-collar work. These software robots are tackling the white-collar activities, so processing an invoice, processing a purchase order, activities that are very, very mechanical that a software bot can do quite easily.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
we're talking RPA here, aren't we? Robotic process
Correct.
automation. It's
Yeah.
an area that you obviously specialise in. Do you want to give us a bit of an insight into how powerful those technologies will be
Of
going
course.
forward?
Yes, of course. So I think it's incredibly powerful. It's really transforming the industry, and it's liberating people from the repetitive, very mechanical jobs. It's taking all of that away to be done by the robot, so that they can have that free time to do the creative, the really difficult part that us human can do. So it's having a significant impact particularly in finance and accounting, HR, some of those processes that are very, very repetitive, and it's liberating people really to do some of the difficult stuff.
How far along that journey do you think we are in terms of industry and deployment of these technologies?
It's an interesting question. So I think it varies by industry. So you have the banks, for example, that are I would say very, very mature. They're actually now running out of mechanical process to automate because they've done all the low-hanging fruit, and they're moving into some of the more complex cognitive processes that are much harder to automate. But then at the same time, you have telcos, for example, and you have life sciences organizations that haven't even tried RPA, or they're just starting to get into RPA. So for them, the journey is just starting now. That's right.
Do you think there's some work to do on the perception of automation and robotics? Because I think the average man on the street might worry about the kind of impact that this will have on the workforce, and I think the point you just made there about it liberating the workforce to do better jobs is a message that we hear quite a lot. But do you think that message is getting through?
It's an interesting point, and I think it's we advise our clients to be very, very careful in how they manage the communication, because this is not how many people am I going to get rid of. It's about how can I be more efficient, closer to my customers, quicker in this process, maybe more compliant, make less errors, etc. Not necessarily about the cost reduction, but I think the cost reduction is still in many organizations the kind of the key thing they look at when looking into RPA. Now the point around liberating people, I think is quite important, and it's important to manage expectations. The bots will only be able to do the the robotic elements of the job, but all of us do part of that, and part intelligent, creative decision making, etc. So to give you a very quick example. Processing an application from a candidate that wants to work with us is a very mechanical thing. You take the data from two systems into a third one, you do some evaluation, that's it. All of that can be done by the bot. Selecting the best candidate for a particular role, that's only a human can do that kind of thing. So by liberating people from the admin activities, then you let them do the critical stuff.
So humans are still very central to it. That's your message there.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the term you will see in robotics is human in the loop, and for us it's very, very important. It's making sure that the just because you're using robotics, you're not giving away that responsibility. You still own that process. You're just getting a little bit of help along the way.
Excellent, really good. Okay,
Brilliant.
next up,
Let's grab the next one. So.
it's turquoise green kind of colour there.
So this one is, oh my goodness, the future of work.
Okay, so this is quite an open term, obviously. When you hear the future of work, what comes to mind?
So I think it's a combination of things. It's about location. I think that's a big thing. When I grew up, my parents work. You go to work. That's what you grow up under, and that means going into a place. And I think that's changing a little bit. And work is now what you do, the activity, as opposed to the place, the office, or whatever you have to do. So it's about location in a way. It's also think about how we spend our time and how we measure success. Again, is it about the number of hours you put in, or is it about the productivity, or is it about what you achieve? So I think that's also changing in the future. But it's also about, I think it's also about changing the ways we do our work by using technology. Of course, I would say that, but just to be more productive in what we do on a daily basis.
What role? Yeah, you mentioned technology there. What role do you think technology has in sort of enabling this journey to a more mobile, more flexible kind of workforce that I think we all know where it's going?
Yeah, I think it plays a huge part. It plays a huge part with the technology that we have today. You can pretty much be anywhere and continue to be productive. You can join meetings. You can meet with a client. You can do work from anywhere. So I think the jobs today and in the future more will give you that ability to be free in terms of the location and often even the hours that you want to put in as well.
And from your own personal experience, can you give us a bit of insight into how you work and the challenges you might face in traveling on that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. So my job involves working with clients from all of Europe. So there's a lot of travel involved, but there's a lot of working from home as well, because I can attend meetings and calls. It really doesn't matter where people are, where my colleagues are. I have colleagues joining from India, from the States. The client has people all over the place, and we're very productive like that. I think it's important also, particularly in my role, to keep that face-to-face element. I think that's always going to be there, and I always insist in at least once a month, go and see the client, grab a coffee with them, etc. It's really, really important not to lose that contact. But it definitely helps not having to travel every week to meet them, for sure. Yeah.
Do you believe the office will eventually become obsolete, or do you think there will still be a place for?
I think it is becoming obsolete. I was talking to somebody who works for one of the big four. And they measure, he works for the real estate and corporate services area, and they measure the ratio between seats and employees. And they have a target to reduce. I think they have 1 seat for every 7 employees now. And he was saying we need to get to 1 seat for every 20 employees. So they're really shrinking. Real estate, especially in some of the cities like London, is very, very expensive. So I think they're using that capital to improve the life of employees as opposed to give them a seat in a fancy location. That's changing. Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic, really interesting stuff. 4 more eggs to go.
Okay.
Gone for the last yellow one.
Yep. This one is customer centricity.
How would you define customer centricity, and how powerful do you think that as a concept is in today's business world?
I love it. I love that customer that example. And what to me what it is making sure you design your business and your processes around the needs of the customer. The analogy that I would use is when I grew up, my grandfather used to have this radio, really old radio. To make it work, you have to tune, and sometimes you hear crackling noise, and you have to tune. So very simple machine to use, very complex for the user to use. Nowadays, you get digital music. You press a button and you have fantastic quality music. It's not that the complexity has gone away. It's just that the complexity is now on the other side. And for me, I just have to enjoy the music. So I think that is a good analogy to use for any business that has a client-facing element. You have to try and do that. Build your business around the client and make it easy for them to do what they need to do.
How obviously we hear a lot of most businesses, certainly corporations, have this strategy now where they're being very public about their desire to be customer centric. Yeah. But obviously, businesses have a lot of people to answer for: shareholders, executive boards. It's not just the customer. So how realistic do you think that obsession with absolute customer centrality is?
I think you're absolutely right. That it's tough, especially for businesses that have been around for a while, that are very large. It's difficult. It's difficult to transform your business, the way you operate, into a customer centricity model. And sometimes what you see is you see parts of the business doing this well, but you still have all the back office, etc., doing the stuff they typically do. So I think it's a big challenge for companies today. Yeah.
In a way, it's the bigger the company, the harder it is. You know, especially the more established, the traditional. I'm thinking in the finance industry, for example, the banks who have been challenged by smaller challenger banks, they're called, aren't they? Correct. Where they're able to offer exactly what the customer wants because they're smaller and agile and
nimble.
That's going to be a fascinating story to see unfold over the next 10-20 years, isn't it? Completely.
And I think that's exactly what those startups will have an advantage, because it's going to be much more harder for the established businesses to change completely. Yeah. In a way, sometimes they have to almost re-engineer themselves completely to do this. Yeah.
And what about the customers themselves? Because obviously we know customers' demands are going up and up and up. Do you see that trend continuing? Do you think we're being a bit too demanding as customers?
I think we are, and to be honest, it's a difficult one to crack. But I take the example of Apple, where everybody used to say, Steve Jobs now coming up with this thing, the iPad, and nobody asked for it. It doesn't respond to any customer requirement, etc. Next thing we know, everybody's using it. And he used to take a slightly different approach to say, I'll tell you what you need. I tell you this is what you need, as opposed to listening to everybody, because I think you can fall into the trap of listening too much and then not being able to do anything, because it's just, as you said, I think we're becoming spoiled for choice, etc. So I think there comes a point where there needs to be a balance between listening to what your customers are saying and also, having your own expert opinion on what you should be doing. Yeah,
that's excellent. Yeah, I certainly think this is a trend that isn't going to go away. And I think, obviously, you look at the really disruptive companies over the last 10 years, Uber, Airbnb, they are the companies who have provided a service which maybe people didn't even realize they needed before, but actually they've stepped into the market and done it. So I think buzzword, absolutely, but it's definitely an overriding aspect of most business.
For sure. For
these
sure.
days. So
For sure.
3 eggs left, 2 blue, 1 green.
Okay,
Let's go for the blue.
go for the blue one. Let me see. This one is automation.
Automation. Okay,
Nice.
so I guess it's a similar kind of discussion to robotics. And first of all, what do you think automation encompasses that maybe just robotics doesn't? How would you define automation?
So robotics will focus just on the mechanical activities, the mechanical tasks that I mentioned before. Automation is a slightly wider concept, and it covers cognitive automation. So when you have to make a decision, let me give you an example. So if you're processing a mortgage application in a bank, robotics will only do getting the data from one system to the other, or reading a piece of paper and put it into one of the systems. Cognitive automation will help you make the decision. Is this person, based on the credit score, based on the income and all these things, the bot is helping you make a decision. Not making the decision for you, but helping you make a decision. And they learn. You've heard the term machine learning. Bots learn, and they will say, "Oh, the last time I saw this and that particular variable, this is the decision you made. Therefore, I suggest you're consistent with that." So I think it's a fascinating field. But yes, automation covers more than just the robotic piece. Yeah.
So in terms of the journeys that a lot of companies want to go on now with data, automation is a critical part of that, isn't it?
It is completely. It is, and you heard the one of the buzzwords, big data. All the data that organizations have, it's fantastic to put it in one place and create a data lake and all these wonderful things. But the crucial thing to me is what are you going to do with it? And I think the biggest opportunity that you have with data is to analyze it and come up with automation opportunities. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned, analyzing decisions that were made in the past, analyzing problems. We have another customer that is using. They're a big telco, and they're using the system logs from the router that you have for broadband in your home and everybody's homes to anticipate issues. And they say, when I saw this particular issue and that particular element in the log, the next thing we knew is the system went down. So let's anticipate that and let's proactively forecast those things. So I think it's a fascinating area, that one.
Can you give the listeners any sort of idea of the scope of productivity improvement and change that actually automation could have for businesses? Because it is potentially massive, isn't it?
It's huge. It is huge. It is huge, and it's. I think the potential is very significant, but I think it's equally important is to select the right areas to do it. We were talking to an oil and gas client the other day, and they have a large finance, HR, procurement area. Our recommendation is, start there, because there's a lot of automation that you can do. Don't start in your refineries. In some rig in the ocean. Don't start there. They're very human-intensive process, very complex. That's not the best place to start. Maybe there will be automation there at some point, but you need to start with the basics and then grow from there.
If I'm the owner of a small company with a limited technical skill set, how would I might hear the word automation on a podcast like this and think that sounds great. How would a small company or a medium-sized company look at deploying these technologies? Because the knowledge you need the knowledge of how to deploy it, as you just said.
That is correct. And my advice is you need to find a partner that can help you along the way. I think it's really important not to try to do it yourself. Yes, by all means, educate yourself and learn as much as you can, but it's always helpful to get a partner to help you off the ground and at least give you the foundation that you need to start with the right foot.
Excellent. Yeah. 5 eggs have hatched. We've got 2 more cracking at the seams, so let's go for the penultimate egg.
Yep. This one here says digital disruption.
This is one of my favourites because I'm sure the word disruption has, literally means sort of a problem, really. Mm-hmm. Like a disruption isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think in the technology sphere, disruption has taken on a different kind of meaning. And what is that meaning to you? It's
interesting, and I think it's also one of the digital. If we take you took the word disruption. Let me take digital first, because I think it's also one that has been overused in the industry quite a lot. Everything is digital. It's digital this, and we're one of our clients were saying something like we don't do digital. We are digital. What does that mean? So I think there's a lot of hype around that. But coming back to your point, digital disruption. What I think it is when business models are completely changed by the use of technology. You mentioned the example of Uber before. That's a perfect example. Airbnb, whatever you name it. It's radically transforming the industry by using technology. That to me, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
There's only a small section of companies or individuals, whoever they are, who can disrupt in a way. Do you think, you mentioned the term is overused. Do you think it's incorrectly used when talking just about digital initiatives or digital change.
You're right, and I've seen many organizations using traditional business models. Because if we take the example of Uber or Netflix or whatever, those are businesses that started like that. So for them, they didn't transform themselves. They're disrupting the industry, but they didn't transform themselves. I think it's a lot harder for a traditional company, even if they create this team, a team for digital innovation or digital disruption or whatever name they one of my clients, they have a team called a digital attacker.
Wow.
Because they want to be really bold and aggressive on the term. So digital attacker is a big team of people that are just driving disruption across the business. And I tend to take a skeptical eye about it. I think the moment you create a team to drive digital disruption, I think you've gone the wrong way. I think digital disruption should be in every employee at the organization. If you really want it to happen, it needs to be in the culture, and everybody should be responsible for doing it. As opposed to if you take that team, the message I think you send to your employees is that, okay, those guys are responsible for disruption. I continue to do my stuff. But that's the way I look at it.
That's really. Do you see that a lot? That kind of segregation where companies are hastily putting together teams of people to disrupt technologically.
Yeah. That's how I see it. And they get some super techie ninjas, driving that stuff, and they take people from different areas because I need an HR SME and I need a finance SME. So they get all this team together and they come up with really good stuff. But it's really difficult to get that back into the business and change the ways of working, because precisely people see that as an alien concept. It's that team putting that together. They never asked me, So I think it needs to be back. It needs to be. Yes, it's fantastic that you have a team innovating, etc. But you need to involve the entire organization. I think
disruption is something which will probably this era we're in at the moment, where it's very fashionable to talk about your digital change plans and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What, do you think we will sort of hit a plane at some point or do you feel, because of the rate of change of technology and the rate of development, that this kind of environment we're in at the moment, where people want to disrupt and want to be seen to be disrupting, is going to just continue?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to answer, but I think it will come. Digital disruption as a concept, I think it will come to an end. I mean, if you look at people, if you look at babies now, that I don't have a young baby, but I have my friends just had one, and if you look at the baby, just quite happily with playing with the phone, playing with the iPad, etc. Not the toys we used to have when you and I grew up. For those guys, could you imagine when they're in the work environment? There's not going to be such a thing as digital disruption, because everything will be...
Because digital will be their life.
Exactly.
It won't even be a separate concept. It will be
correct
who they are, which is quite a scary concept.
I agree. But I think that's what's going to happen. So digital disruption, I think, has a shelf life, for sure. Yeah.
Has it been quite exciting to be in that sort of generation where you knew the pre-digital age and you've seen it evolve? Obviously you're talking about a future there where digital will be normal, but it's quite the era we're in at the moment.
I think it is fantastic. I think it is fantastic. When I was growing up, and I remember when I got the first, my dad bought me my first computer in the 80s, and it was an alien thing. It's like, what is this thing? And I started coding, etc. It was fantastic. It was the new stuff. It was what's coming, etc. It's quite interesting to see that 25 years down the line, we're still driving that disruption. But I think we are probably the only generation that is going to live through that. I think the new generations are just going to perhaps build on that. But as you said, they're going to be digital from the beginning, for sure. Yeah.
Well, eggs have very much survived the digital age. I think they will continue to be a good source of nutrients and buzzwords, as we'll find out with this last one here.
Let's take the last one. And... the last one says chatbot.
Chatbot, okay. And first question to you on this point.
Sure.
As a customer yourself, as a consumer, as someone who might be paying a bill or updating a tariff or something like that, do you enjoy using chatbots?
I don't, for the most part.
No?
I don't, for the most part, and I will break down my chatbot experience into two. If you look at those, you can when you're interacting with the chatbot, you can see if it's of class 1 or class 2. I will call them.
Okay.
Class 1 is the one that you can see that it's trained to give you boilerplate answers. Oh, is this person looking for this? Oh, here's the boilerplate answer. It doesn't do anything. If it's a bank or whatever, it won't do anything on your account. It won't be able to apply for a loan or execute an action. It's just answering questions from a predefined database, which I can probably find online. Those I don't enjoy using much. I think the second class of chatbots that are now becoming more relevant are the ones that are able to take action and say, I want to transfer from this account to that account. If it's a if it's a financial one or if it's anything else that can take action, not just give me information, but actually do something with what I'm saying. I think those are much better. And now with the advent of not only the web chatbots, but you have mobile, you have the Alexas of the world, etc. I think that's going to be an interesting space to look into for the next few years, for sure.
Yeah, so the technology you're saying itself is going to develop to a point where the user experience is enjoyable almost rather than a problem.
Correct, because it does something, right? It does something, and right now you can ask Alexa to buy stuff for you, and the next thing you know is they're knocking on the door with it. So it provides a value straight away, not just giving me information, but it's adding a value. So I think it's an interesting place.
Can you give us a bit of insight into the sort of technological work that's going on to make chatbots more realistic, more humanizing them maybe is the wrong word, but making them a better tool for businesses?
So I think what's been happening, and we touch on many of those phenomena, should we call it? Many of these things we talked about with the different terms in the X today. Are helping, and what I mean by that is the technology landscape is changing. You get now systems exposing functionality as APIs. You get robotics in place where that can do things quite quickly, unattended, etc. So if you combine all those things, now all of a sudden you're giving this chatbot the ability to do things, to ask a question from a system, to submit a transaction into another system, to get a bot to do something for you. So I think it's going to be an interesting space, because chatbots in particular are going to evolve from being just a question and answer type of thing into something that can do something for you. Yeah.
When I was speaking to somebody else about this topic, they kind of said that when it comes to humanizing them, he didn't understand why companies try and put a name to chatbots and try to sort of almost trick the user into believing that it's a human. Is that a sort of a view that you would take on as well?
I think so too. Yeah. I think so too. They give it a name and a face and whatever. Does it help? It doesn't help. Just give me that chatbot interface. I would be much happier as a customer if it helps me solve my problem than if it's a she or a he or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter.
Well, Luis, thank you very much for your insights today. I hope you enjoyed that as well. I mean, we're out of eggs now, so that's all the there are many more buzzwords I think you'll agree that we could cover, but thank you very much.
No, very enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Power up your day with the Bulletin Brief, the latest news, insights and opinion delivered straight to your inbox. Subscribe now at digitalbullet.in.